New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Rev Briz with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we're a couple of ministers talking shit. And we do this every Friday morning here on the New Thought Media Network. And we are so very, very grateful that you are with us today. Please feel free to chat along, yell at us if you want, share with your friends, hit the like button or not. Whatever is appropriate, whatever you feel like this morning, it's all good, because we're here to have some fun and share with you a perspective on, well, some of the stuff we see going on in the world. So, Z, how you been? Good week?
Yeah, good week. Just trying to hold in the road, as they say. It's hard to believe we've only been in this year for a month and it already seems like a year almost. It looks like just a week ago or so it was the new year, and now next week is February.
Yes. I did that myself this morning. I woke up, wait, it's the 28th? What's going on here? This is not right. It's but I guess that is what it is. Good morning, Linda. Glad you're with us, dear one. Grateful to see you here on this cold and snowy Colorado morning. We are live. Z and I are back in the great state of Colorado, and no more sunny sunshine for us as in the past week or so. We went from a nice week of sunshine to a nice week of cold and gloomy around here. So, and it looks like it's going to get even colder on the East Coast, eh?
Yes, I mean, the weather patterns continue to say something. I'm not going to say what they say, but they sure talking loud, and I mean, this snow season so far on the East Coast has been pretty brutal. I mean, in the last 3 weeks, I think they've had some kind of snow event or weather event for the last 3 weeks or the last 3 out of 4 weeks. And as they say in the music business, the hits just keep on coming.
Yep. There was snow in the Outer Banks of California last week. My mom lives on one of the very southernmost islands on the North Carolina coast, and there not a lot, but there was snow on her yard. There was snow on her roof. So, and so everyone on the East Coast, if you're, go ahead, Z.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, and in Asheville, North Carolina, they got 12 inches of snow, almost 13 inches of snow.
Yeah. Southern mountains. It's interesting. I'll say that I was born in a blizzard. My folks had a hard time getting their rear wheel drive Chevy, whatever it was, to the hospital because it was so much snow on the road. And then I remember as a kid, big, huge storms in New Jersey, 4 or 5, 6 feet of storm, and my headphones just went silent. And what happened there is then it kind of stopped, and now it seems like it's starting again. So we're not going to say that the climate is changing, folks, but it definitely would appear to be on a spiral, a cycle, a circuit. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you're on the East Coast, stay warm, stay safe, stay indoors. Those big, heavy, wet nor'easters can be a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It here's the real deal. We're just looking at the weather more constantly, what's going on here in the US, but they're having weather events all around. There was a snowstorm in Syria, I think. I see the Syria or Lebanon the other day. That was a pretty unique situation. They got some heavy snow over there as well. And the patterns are changing. We can call it what we want, but um, the amount of temperature rise and the amount of melting glaciers and the amount of deforestation and all the things that contribute, often we don't look at these things in tangent, which they are. We focus on one or two things, but it's a little bit. It's like when you're making a soup. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this that makes the soup what it is. Well, we're in this soup of weather change right now, and that's what's making it. It's all these things: deforestation, carbon emissions, uh,
Yeah.
melting glaciers, improper use of water. I mean, it's a bunch of stuff, and we need to start paying attention.
I uh, I hear an educational children's song, "Climate
Mm.
Soup."
Yes.
It's kind of where we are, really. It's
Yeah.
and again, we're sitting here in Colorado, and yeah, we've had a little snow and a little cold, but not near what is traditional. Let's call it. I don't want to say normal, but traditional.
Right. Right.
So cool. Well, folks, our big story this week is Z and I spent some time this morning taking a little bit deeper of a look and an idea around this thing called the United States economy and what's sort of going on, or is it, or isn't it? We get it. This can be a very confusing and strange topic. And so I'm going to let Z kick us off and give and help us dive into this just a little bit here this morning. Uh, Ministers talking shit about the economy. Let's do this.
Yeah. So, for those of you who are uh, early risers and watch the numbers, I think they came out yesterday, but they're really pumping them today. The GDP, gross domestic product, which is a measure of how much, we produce in the country in terms of products and services, that index rose to 6.9% last year. They just gave the last quarter numbers and they gave the yearly number. And that number is the highest, and it measures jobs and things like that. Obviously, because you can't produce products and services if you don't have people employed.
Right.
And the number is the highest it's been since Ronald Reagan. That's about 3 decades. So people are being employed. We are producing things. But in the same hand, you got CPI, which is Consumer Price Index, which looks at a basket of goods and services, so to speak, of imaginary, not imaginary, but a put together one. And then they look at the price or the cost of that. And that's how you get Consumer Price Index. And that is like 7% now. So we're going to hear, and which you're already hearing, about inflation. We're producing some goods, but the cost of those goods are rising, ergo inflation, right? And I don't know if any of you remember gas lines back in the 80s or back in the 70s, if you go back that far, when we had inflation and those prices were bad.
Yeah. I
So
I remember the gas. I remember the gas lines, not and before the oil embargo, and
yeah,
even before the oil embargo, we were starting to see increased inflation. I didn't know it at the time. I was a kid. We were just selling soda pops and my dad's beer out of a cooler to the people waiting in line. Back in the '70s, you could get away with that kind of stuff. So, but
yes,
then the oil embargo hit, and it got even worse because now there was even less of a supply and an even greater demand, and the inflation increased, especially around gasoline, even greater. So, folks, what it sounds like, what it seems, the seeming experience we're going through is we're creating more, and that must be a good thing. However, everything we're creating is also costing us a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Join us in the chat box. Where do you notice this happening? Where do you see prices 7% or better than they were a year ago at this time?
Well, I'll tell you, one of my, some of you may know I'm a Florida boy, and there's not much seafood in Denver, at least compared to, there's some trout, some other waters, but I used to buy the king crab or the queen crab from the grocery store here, and I used to, when they were on sale, this was like last year, I could get them on sale for like $10.99 a pound.
Yeah.
Right now on sale, they're like $19.99 a pound.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm not buying too many of them. Those were my go-to on football, on the football playoff season. And now we're in the playoffs and I can't get no crab. So I'm upset.
Well, what you're talking about is exactly what Linda's chiming in with. Personal experience and economists' explanations of the economy can vary substantially. Yes. Our experience, and this will happen in many aspects of our lives, right, folks? Our experience in comparison to, quote, the expert's perspective, or what the experts tell us we should be experiencing, or what's going to happen, isn't always exactly aligned, isn't always exactly the same. So again, chime in, let us know. If you're watching this on a replay at another time, chime in, let us know what you're thinking and how this is affecting your life. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll respond even at a later date. If you'd like to talk to us directly through email, you're welcome to send an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. Both Z and I will see that and get back to you on that channel as well. So, what do you see, Z? Where is this pointing us? What's the prescription then?
Well, it's I'm not an economist, but I kind of keep my eye on it, finger on it. I dabble a little bit here and there. And the other thing is the stock market has dropped very well. I'll leave a lot of headroom in there in the past week, and I'm just thinking of one stock in the last 52-week, AMD, the chip stock.
Mm-hmm.
The high for the last 52 weeks was $165 a share. The other day it closed at like 111. And that's happened across the board. A lot of tech stocks, whereas you would think a lot of chip stocks, because we have a shortage on chips, right? You may have heard that recently. You can't get cars, you can't get refrigerators, all products that have chips in it, phones, because we don't make enough chips in this country and they got to import them. But those prices are going down of the companies that we do have here. So there are, and as Linda was indicating, in the economy, there's all these levers that get pulled to try to keep the boat afloat.
Yeah.
And we are going to have to begin to look at our consumerism. I mean, let's just be real about it. Because again, that's contributing to the change in weather patterns. People buy shoes now, keep them 3 months and get rid of them because they're not in style anymore.
Right.
We have a throwaway consumer society, and all that stuff has to go somewhere. It goes into landfills and things like that. So that's a side note, but it goes back to the economy that we have to begin to find, I believe, in terms of how much we're producing. Is it overproducing, or the numbers look good because we can say unemployment up, but we're producing a lot of goods that that may not be used or not used properly.
Yeah.
And it becomes a true Wizard of Oz story. Who's behind the curtain?
Who's behind the curtain? And no, we're not going back to black and white. Sorry. Um, but um, but this is, you bring up another good point of it. You hear us on this show all the time, folks, talk about this interconnectedness, this wholeness, this systemic oneness that we're living in. So anytime we start to pull apart a thread like this, it leads to another thread. And Z, you're talking about fast fashion, and the way that fast fashion is really creating some serious problems, because these companies, not only do they produce too much for what we need here in America or other developed, let's say developed countries, but
Yep.
they overproduce to the point where the excess gets dumped on underdeveloped countries.
Right.
And so you see these underdeveloped countries um, awash in cheap T-shirts that fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
and cheap shoes that you mentioned people throw them away after 3 months. Yes, and I can't tell you how many kids' shoes I bought that fell apart after 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
or even adult shoes. Bought a pair of what I thought would be a pretty good solid set of hiking boots for the winter back in September, and they're already breaking down. It's
Right.
January. And
Right.
that's not adverse wear. That's not me throwing them, beating them up and running them over. That's just shoddy quality.
Yeah.
And so everywhere we look, we're going to pull these little strings. And I think our job as spiritual individuals, as spiritual people on this planet, is to take a much deeper look at what, and when, and how we do consume.
Yeah.
Um, yep.
Yeah. And that's, you know, you can look at every producing industry, food industry. Let's just take that as an example. I'm sure everybody, how much food is being thrown away. I just saw, every year CNN does this local heroes, or I forget the exact title, but they honor people who does heroic things, if you will, in their community. And there was a couple people actually, one lady was at a restaurant, and they were throwing some food away, and she's like, "What you gonna do with that?" We said, "Why don't we give it to the homeless?" They said, "No, we can't do that." Uh, and she called. They said, "Well, if you want to do that, you got to call the owner." So it's called the owner, talk with him, and they came up with an arrangement. And he had like 4 or 5 restaurants, and they made an arrangement of all that excess food that was good food, wasn't something that somebody ate and whatever.
Right.
Uh, but was able to arrange for it to go to homeless centers and places that needed food, because normally that stuff gets thrown away, and there's tons of food that's edible, that's good, that does not have the potential of contamination, and it gets thrown away.
Yeah. Yep. Um, it's amazing how, and there is change, right? That
Oh,
is an
that's
indication of the change that's happening. My wife and I were in the restaurant industry many years back, 20 years ago, and we would run into the same thing. We'd have a catering event, and we'd have all this food left over, and normally we'd look at who threw the event and say, "Do you want the food? We'll box it up. You paid for it. You purchased it. It's your food. What do you want us to do with it?" And back then, every so often, somebody would say, "Let's get that to the homeless folk." Okay, but the homeless shelter couldn't accept it,
right.
and we would literally have to walk around in the streets with boxes of food, trying to find the homeless to give them the food, rather than being able to give the food to the people that we knew. Now, again, those things are changing, and that's the power of our own actions. Linda's in the chat box sharing that while her and her husband like certain products, bacon, orange juice, other things like that, they're consuming less of them right now because of this price increase and
Yeah.
because of the cost increase. It doesn't mean they're giving them up. None of us say you have to give up anything, but we do have to make those conscious decisions to say, I might not purchase as much as I did, not because of the price, not because
Right.
I don't have enough, but because I want to put a little pressure on the system to alleviate this, to not keep driving this. If we keep paying increased prices on our basic consumer goods, the prices are going to keep going up.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, in my mind, by definition, healthy economies and economics is about balance. That
Yes.
all of these numbers that they read out, you know, the deficit and CPI and GDP and that whole alphabet soup is about how do we find a balance that's sustainable where we do a little to it and fro in price, we do a little to it and pour it in supply, and there's a gradual uptick or downtick to support all the things that need to be, you know, provided to have a successful life, right? Housing, clothing, jobs, you know, a
Right.
little money, a little excess money for a few luxuries, if you will. Um, and that's where the challenge, and it starts really in the individual homes about understanding, in my mind anyway, understanding the purchase habits of the family, uh the how much are we buying into the consumer meal. I mean, you
Yeah.
sales, I mean, when I think about all of the advertisement online or TV, and it becomes overwhelming sometimes. And I know
Yeah.
people need their jobs, they got to make money, because I need my job and I need to make money too. But there's got to be a balance where we don't get bombarded.
Right. And I want to see it. I would like to see a an advertising environment where, yeah, it's a, I mean, I get it. You got to make your product look good. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't have to exaggerate, and we don't have to put others down, and we don't have to make other products wrong, and we don't have to, and it doesn't have to be this. I really do believe there's more than enough for everybody,
Yeah.
and and if you're not making enough money on your laundry detergent, then maybe look at another industry. Maybe there's enough laundry detergent companies out there making more than enough laundry detergent for the whole planet. Uh, I'm not talking socialism, but I am talking oneness.
Right.
And how do we find these ways to to promote that? That's the important
Well,
part, I think,
and
promoting
you
it.
know, we didn't talk about this in this economy session, if you will, but there was a story that came out, oh, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and they were talking about the most, I don't know, the 9, maybe 12 richest people in the world make more than like 90 something percent of the world combined. Um, Speaking to this whole thing about, you know, you think about those people, what if what do they got their hands in? And there was actually a story about this, I forget where the young lady was, PhD, I forget the college, but she was looking at, you know, should we start looking at limiting how much money one person can have?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I didn't dig in deep enough, but there is a bill in Congress right now that I understand that will make it illegal for legislators, representatives, and senators to trade on the stock market.
Whoa.
And I didn't know this. There's actually TikTokers that are that have turned Nancy Pelosi into a market analyst, and they're just mimicking her trades. I don't know how they figured out exactly right, but they're mimicking what Nancy Pelosi's doing. I don't think she's not endorsing it, she's not promoting it, she's not trying to do it. But the point being, our legislators have gotten so wrapped up in making so much money. I mean, let's be honest, they make 250,000 a year just by doing what they do. That's that would be good enough for most people on the planet would do pretty damn well at 250 a year. And they're
Yeah.
making all kinds of other endorsement deals and sweet lobby deals. Why do they need to be monkeying with the stock market too. And I think they're starting to realize that it doesn't look so good, so they're going to stop doing it.
Yeah, it's and it's a slippery slope, right? Because if I make some money and I decide to put my money in a product or a service or go buy crab legs, that's my prerogative. But if
Right.
that if that hinges on some inside information or some privileged information, let's not say inside. We're not going to accuse anybody of any crimes, but you begin to wonder, you have some access to information that others don't have. You take advantage, which, okay, I get it. But when that begins to set you up for other people to take advantage of it, or it begins to exclude other people, I mean, it's, again, it's that balance. And because what we're doing here, we're selling a product, right? Or service or information in that our primary goal, or one of our primary goals, is to get our audience to look at life in a spiritual, interrelated, connected way, so that all boats rise with the rising tide.
Right. Yep.
And right now, all boats are rising.
So we get to recreate our own economy.
Yes.
And you folks can be a part of it. And here's how we do that. Z gives us the greatest segues each and every week. We want to take just a quick moment to say thank you to those of you that are making this economy work, that are making this ministry possible. That is our financial donors, our organizational contributors, and our individual donors and contributors like yourself. Please help us take a moment to say thank you to everybody that makes this possible.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Heckerland Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Odgen, thank you for your very generous donation. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
Thank you to all of our financial contributors. If you'd like to get involved and be a part of our financial economy, our prospering spiritual economy here, please head on over to the website, ntmedia.org. Click on the donate button and make it a monthly donation. We'll get your name and or organization on the thank you video as well. All right, Z, before we run out of time here, final thoughts for the day.
Well, since we're talking about the economy and we're still in January, so we can still talk about New Year's goals, I would say, hey, let's all go out and evaluate our budgets and look at our spending and figure out where we are on that GDP and CPI number in our own individual lives, and figure out how we can make it better.
Yeah, I agree. Bring it into alignment. And it's tax season. So please do remember that if you are a financial contributor to New Thought Media Network, you will be seeing your contribution letters in just a few days. We're almost done, wrapped up, getting ready to send those out. All right, I'm Rev Z. No, you're Rev Z. I'm Rev Briz. We're a couple of ministers talking shit. We're going to get out of here for now. We'll see you again next week. Till then, peace.
Peace.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.